Hello and welcome to Mountain Aromatics. Today I thought I would go over questions that I get asked a lot. Um, so for my audience is pretty broad in regards to where they are in their journey with creating perfume and making fragrances and that kind of stuff. So sometimes there are some really basic questions, and then there's some really complicated questions. So I thought I would tackle some of the really pretty basic questions because honestly, I get those the most, and some are just pretty simple. So the first thing I would say is that I have a playlist, and it's a basics playlist. And if you are pretty new and just starting out with perfumery, making fragrances, that type of thing, go through that playlist and watch those because there is a ton of information and a lot of your questions are going to be answered in those videos. And you can't necessarily tell by the title of the video all the information that is in there because almost on every video I go into detail and I go down some rabbit holes and teach you some different things I wasn't planning on saying and teaching and going over. So that's a great place to start because it's going to go over a lot of questions and materials, things, that type of thing. So that's the first thing I'll say. So I'll start with just some of the questions I remember reading off the top of my head. And I had a video on timber silk, and someone asked if timber silk, if that is something that could be mixed or blended with other materials. Absolutely. Yes. Any material can be mixed, blended with any other material. So whether it's timber silk or cashmere or isoe super or lavender or whatever it is, they all can be mixed to your pleasure. Um, so there's no material that I can think of that can't be necessarily blended with another material. And I'm thinking about that. Watch me be wrong, but I mean, nothing you're going to blend and start a fire or like an explosion is going to happen. Nothing like that will occur. It just won't. So I think the next thing I would go into that I'm asked a whole lot and I go over a lot because it's confusing is so like with a formula. So is this an accord or is this a fragrance? Well, here's the deal. It's very simple, but can be a little confusing. Here's what I mean. You can get just patchouli and add alcohol to it, and that is your fragrance. Okay, so you can get patchouli and clear wood. Well, bad example. Really bad example because that's just a clean patchouli. So, like a timber silk and a patchouli, and put those together. Add either perfumer's alcohol or IPM or both or whatever, and that could be your fragrance. an so an accord is, think like music and a piano. A chord is multiple notes together that smell beautiful together, that blend well, that all harmonize and are in sync with each other. So that's an accord. So you can make an accord out of, let's say with it, patchouli, timber silk. You can have just those two. Technically, it's two or more materials together, blended at an amount where they just harmonize together. That's an accord. You can have an accord that has 15 materials, and all those 15 materials are at levels that when they're all put together, it is in harmony, and it smells like one. It smells very rounded and one. There are accords that are, let's stay simple, like a jasmine accord. So a jasmine accord are going to have materials like CS3, jasminate, things like that that make up jasmine. And when those are all put together, it has a just the effect of jasmine in a very harmonious way. That's a jasmine accord. You can also have a flower accord. So you could make that up, because you could, in that flower accord, you could have gardenia, jasmine, tuberose, and lily of the valley. And you put those materials together in harmony, where it is almost like a bouquet of flowers that you're smelling that are in harmony together. So that is an accord. Okay, so we just made a floral, let's just call it the floral accord, okay? Well, you can technically, you can take that floral accord and you can put some drops in a sprayer, weigh it out and do a 10% and the 90% of perfumer's alcohol, and that is now a fragrance. So you have an accord that you made, and you made it into a fragrance. So you can use it that way as well. So that's why it can be confusing, because you can use an accord as a fragrance if you want to, but you can also take this floral accord and add a wood accord, add a patchouli accord, and make a formula out of that, and that be your fragrance. So that's why the question is, to me, that's why perfumery is so fun, because you can do whatever you want. But for some of you who are in the beginning stages, it really can be a little confusing. And to me, that would have been helpful for me to know in the very beginning, that I could make a floral accord with different flowers that are in it, and I can put it in a sprayer with 90% perfumer's alcohol, and now I call it a fragrance. It is from one accord, but it's from I made a fragrance out of it. And I can make a different fragrance, adding other accords to it to make a formula that has wood and patchouli and all kinds of other things with it as well. That can be a fragrance just as valid as this accord being a fragrance of just fresh flowers. So I hope, well, I know that's helpful because people have that type of question constantly. So you can have very, very simple accords, and your accords do not have to be a pear accord or a peach accord or a guava accord. They can be a little more complicated. I have a floral spice accord. I have like a warm spice balsamic accord. Then I have like an accord, it's called the Cashmere Family Accord. And I'll just tell you, like in that, it's I have like sandalwood, amber, like to lift it a little bit. For me, that is in that family, long story, but for me in that family is like a little, a tiny bit of raspberry ketone, a little bit of fir bark. Just a tiny bit, because the main thing is like cashmere, cashmere, and some musk. That cashmere is kind of considered a musk. Cashmere is a funky material. It's very, very different. It is. It's very, very different. But it will help you make a fragrance that's like a cashmere sweater. That's just a little cozy and a little high end, really nice, that type of thing. It's kind of cool. But that to me is an accord. You can. The other thing though is you can call that a base. To me, it is a cashmere accord because it's very just cashmere and it's very well rounded or whatever. But then, so now I'm moving myself into, it's so complicated, you can also call it a base, where a base can be, so not where there's a top note, a middle note, and a bottom note. So I'm going to call it a bottom note because it's better instead of a base. You could have a base that is just top notes. You can have a base that is just middle notes, and you can have a base that's just the bottom notes, like a wood base. You could have a fruit base. You could have a floral base. You could have, and you're like, wait a minute, what's the difference between a floral accord and a floral base? Like what? Technically, the floral accord you could consider to be a base. Here's kind of how I would differentiate it for me. If I were going to have like a floral accord, it would pretty much be just the floral notes and they're just not hard and fast rules, but let's just say, to make it simple, just the floral notes that are in there to make up a floral accord. A floral base, you might have a one or two musk in there that go well with the florals that you're using, and you may have a couple of one or two green notes that are like emeraldine or something like that is in your floral base as well. So you're kind of still rounding out and making your floral picture of that base a little bit bigger. It makes sense to me. There's no real hard and fast rules. There just isn't. There's no real rule about how many materials have to be in a base, how many materials have to be in an accord. Just two or more make up an accord. But if you wanted to be really simple, why bases are awesome is that, let's say you get a top note base, a base that's just, they're all top notes, and you get, let's just say this one. So this is just full of top notes and it's a base. Then you get another one, and this is middle notes, and it's a base, but just full of middle notes. And then you get another one, and this is bottom notes, like just all wood and deep, heavy notes. That's a base. So you have tons of materials in all of these. And that's all you use. You could use 3 drops of your top base. You can use 3 drops or 4 drops of your, or 8 drops, just making this up, of your middle base, and then 3 drops of your bottom notes base. And there you got a huge formula that's pretty complex, because typically in your bases you're going to have a lot of material or a lot of molecules that are in there, and that is very, very simple. So that's why a lot of people will buy bases. And so I think you're used to me making long videos. Anyway, this is one of my bases. I make a lot of bases as well. I make a lot of accords, but I make a lot of bases as well. So this is a MA is Mountain Aromatics MA Specialty Ombre Base. So this is a very, very complicated, many molecules are in there, and this is the ombre is amber, but it's a very, very complex amber. It's going to be the whole bottom deep part of your fragrance. So you could easily use this as your base. And I have, this one is called Complex Halt Top Notes Base. So this is just all top notes, and it's a base. So I'll just switch it out for the other thing that I grabbed. Oh, I put it up. Okay. Anyway, so that's just the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Sorry, I got distracted. Where it can make like this ombre specialty base. It is, when I put it together, I am like, this is so amazing, but I know I can take this base and I could create so many different formulas that go in multiple directions. I could use this with florals. I can use this with other woods. I could use this with other ambers. I could use this with, I can go in any direction at all. I could do an oriental. I could do a floral oriental. I could do a sweet oriental. I could do a citrus and use this. It's just that versatile, and it just depends on the amount of it that I use and the formula. I can make this where this is the center, the main focus of the fragrance. And so that's where I've given you a picture before where it's in the center, and all I'm going to do is decorate this with a tiny bit of other things. So it's like the Christmas tree, and you're just putting a couple of decorations on the Christmas tree, like a tiny bit of citrus, just a couple of drops of citrus, but the main focus being the ombre base. So that's why bases can be really cool. But honestly, this is where it can get a little complicated Because, yeah, I can pull 3 or 4 molecules and we can make a formula. Absolutely. You can do that. You can get 2 or 3 accords and make a formula. You can get 3 bases, something like that, and make a formula. It just can be complicated, and I hope that makes sense. All I know is that with an accord, it is pretty harmonious. Really think music where it's just like I have a plum accord. It is just focused on plum. So when you smell that accord, I don't have a lot of other things going on, like a ton of musk and any wood in there or anything. Like I don't do that when I make an accord. I pretty much stick to all of the materials, all the molecules that make up plum. Now I can do a light plum or a dark plum or a heavy plum or like a cold plum or a really warm plum. You can do that, like a warm plum accord, a cold plum accord. You could do that kind of thing as well, but typically it's very harmonious. And the bases that I do and that are typically out there can be pretty complex and a little broad, like my MA Specialty Ombre Base. It is an amber base, but it's pretty broad with regards to the amber, but it's just so amazing because I can just take it in any direction I want to, and that's the fun of it. That's what's awesome about it. So I think that's where I'm going to stop for today with that, and I hope that this video, that the sound and the picture is good and should be in 4K. I am still learning, I'm still trying to tweak, so hopefully this is getting better and that it will be even better on the next Mountain Aromatics when I see you. If you want to help out, I will have a link below to my Patreon page, and I send out formulas, and depending on the level that you choose, I send samples of either fragrances or bases or accords, that kind of thing, and you can let me know which one you want or whatever, like if you want an accord or you want a base or you want a fragrance that I make, whatever. With Patreon, you can do that. I'll have a link below, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you on the next Mountain Aromatics. Have a good day.